Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Flip Your Life podcast, episode number 8. Sweet. Well, Miss Angelina, how's it going?
Good.
Getting
how
right
are
into it. I
you?
love it. I'm good. So, guys, if you are listening to this right now, so if you know me, my co-host and I, that's the correct grammar to say that. I remember my teacher in school would always correct me when I would say me and someone else. So now every time I say that, I'm always like, oh wait, that person and I. So Vaughn and I obviously have started this podcast, guys, to help the newest person getting started in real estate, and really anybody, even if you're doing a number of deals, big deals. Like, the whole purpose is to not only provide information, but also to just really create a community around this whole Flip Your Life podcast experience. And speaking of community, we actually have Miss Angelina Cole, who is a student, a member of Wholesale to Freedom community. And we're basically just doing sort of a success story, but a little bit of behind the scenes kind of quote unquote, how you came about your first deal, your second deal. And we're really bringing her on because she is a rock star, a rock solid new investor. Literally did not know like more than half of the things that she knows now, and is already just like paving the way, on fire. It's just amazing to watch. And if you hear a little babbling in the background, don't worry, it's not her. It's her little girl, her amazing little baby that she has here. And that's another reason why we wanted to bring her on, because there's a lot of things that people think, or there's a lot of reasons why people think they can't get started in real estate, right? I don't have a lot of time because I work a full-time job. Hey, I have kids. I'm a stay-at-home mom or dad. And, there's no way I could get started in this. And she's just a prime example of, if it's important to you, you'll make it happen. If not, you'll just make an excuse, right? So anyway, Angelina, we're grateful. We are honored to have you on. And just thank you so much for being on here.
No, thank you. I truly appreciate it. I think I get a little nervous, but then I start to think like, no, somebody needs to hear this story because it can ultimately change someone else's course of life. And that's kind of what the whole community has done for me. So if I could do anything, I would love to just do that for somebody else as well.
Amazing. Absolutely love it. So, we're going to keep it short here, but we're going to dive into some real jam-packed information. And guys, if you're wondering, what she's talking about when she's saying community, is yes, I've started an investing community called Wholesale to Freedom, where I'm teaching people basically how to get started in real estate, and even how to grow your real estate business. How to buy rental properties creatively, how to do your first fix and flip, how to wholesale real estate. All these different things that I've been able to learn over the past 2 years, but also helping people avoid all of those mistakes, because I'm helping them literally hand in hand, side by side, guiding them through these processes, so that they can go off and do even more deals and even bigger deals, and we do even more deals together. And it's just a group of like-minded individuals. So definitely reach out if you're interested in that. But Angelina, would love to know, very simple question, but very interested to know, what got you into real estate?
So honestly, I have to rewind it a little bit for you guys just to kind of give you a little bit real raw into my story and my life. So I've had the mentality of being a survivor, not just paycheck to paycheck, but when I was younger, I was a victim of physical abuse. My ex-stepdad used to beat us. I was a victim of sexual assault, and my mom had actually left me living in a condemned house, living in my car. So my whole life, I really felt like all I did was survive. That's really my mentality of how can I just survive. And fast forward to actually November of last year, I was actually able to put one of the people that had hurt me and traumatized me behind bars for life in prison. And I thought to myself, this is it. This is what God was showing me to do, is to just start new, start fresh, and really start thriving. So stop surviving in life and really start to thrive. And Myles, honestly, you've been on my Facebook for I don't know how many years, like 8 years or something like that. And I had saw your story, and I was like, okay, that is kind of a sign in life. Like, there's another survivor God has had our paths crossed for a reason. I had looked into real estate, but I knew nothing. I sold my house. I literally had no idea. So I was like, okay, maybe I can do something with this. I have a drive and a passion to make sure my kids, I call them my mountain movers. So make sure my kids can conquer the world and do everything they want to, and just not live the life that I did by any way, shape, or form. So I joined the community knowing nothing, like your wife was in the hospital about ready to give birth as well. So I was like, okay, this is just a sign. And we had our conversations, and I just knew I needed to soak up all the knowledge, because I wholeheartedly felt like this was something that could change our course of life, not just for, the right now, but the future, the vision. There was a huge vision behind real estate. And so I thought, okay, this is it. We're no longer surviving. We're no longer in that mental state. We are now thriving, and this is where it starts. And so that's really kind of what propelled me forward to just put my everything into it and just take all the knowledge that this community has given me and just run with it and never look back. I feel like a lot of women forget who they are and kind of forget not where they come from, but what they're capable of doing, because they look back so often. And that's been my biggest thing, is don't let your past define you. Just like you said, keep taking that step and keep moving forward, because like you said, everybody goes through things, and you have the capability to conquer those things 110%. So, first of all, I got connected, right? So I always want to learn from somebody that's doing something that I want. And that connection was you in the community that you had built. And it wasn't just you. When you say it's a community, it's truly a community. It's people at all walks of life, all stages of life. There's other people that were just getting started. Not going to lie, like always reaching out to you. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's got so much to do. So I started reaching out to other people that were like, okay, maybe not as busy, or maybe had the same questions and tried to figure it out on our own, but always ask, people, and always ask you to like kind of reassure us what we are doing was correct. But first, I got connected. I mean, you have to get connected. You can't try to tackle on a lion by yourself per se. And then I started doing the things. So if you want to learn something and you don't take the advice of somebody that knows what they're doing, then how are you really going to learn? So I started applying the things I was being taught, and I started conquering my own fears of like cold calling, just picking up the phone. I don't know how many times I got, cussed at. I don't know how many times like I got hung up on. That feeling of being defeated. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this. And then the next day I'm like, oh, wait, this person was actually really nice to me. Maybe I should keep going. So really just started small and started learning those little things. And then asking questions. I feel like sometimes people are scared to ask questions because they don't want to feel or look stupid. Look, all day, I will look stupid. I will feel stupid if it brought home that check that I recently posted of $21,000. Like, okay, make me look stupid. That's okay. I'll learn. I'll bring it home and I'll learn. But really just applying and staying connected.
Angelina, yeah, you were sharing about your first deal, and I was going to ask you, how did your first deal really come about? Because you've been able to do two deals within being in the mentorship with a total of like, how many months have you been doing this now? I guess
December 19th was when I joined. But my first deal, I mean, when we locked up paperwork, it was, I think, 4 months. I think when paperwork, by the time we got the paperwork done, we were just waiting for closing. But yeah, actually there was a list that was provided, and going through making those calls. I'll be 100% honest. When I first saw the list, I was super nervous, because if the owner was living at the address that I was calling on, I wouldn't call. I was scared. Because
Hey, I
I
love
didn't
the
want them to
honesty.
be like, no, I live here. You know what I mean? I mean, I was so scared.
Right.
And then so I would always call on the out of state ones because you're like, yeah, these out of states are a little easier. So I was like, let me start easy, let me start easy. But then as it progressed, I noticed that those people are like, well, why would I do that? It's a great rental. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll just take all prejudgments out of my mind and I'll just do what I was told to do and
Funny.
just call people. So
So funny.
I ended up calling on this house, and this gentleman answered. And typically, he said he doesn't answer phone calls that are out of state. My number comes up as a Michigan number, but he ended up answering the phone, and it was a brothers that had a house that was a family house, and it was in the estate for their mom and then their sister, so they all own this house. But it ended up being, I feel like, I don't know, just my luck, crazy deals. The first deal was a sub two deal, and now this was a probate deal that it was just a lot of waiting and waiting and waiting, but it ended up being amazing. I gained a really good relationship with these guys and talked with them, and they were going to market it out to other investors, but just because of the relationship I built with them, they turned down the other investors and went with the offer that we had given them, and just by that relationship and talking with them. So it ended up being an amazing deal. Had to wait for probate, but once it went through, they said that they will let me know when they're ready to sell their other homes. So it ended up being pretty amazing.
Wow, look at that. Dude, amazing. Well, and I think you said a lot of really great things here because number one, you said, look, I was afraid to call people that lived in the house, so I just kind of went out of state. Now, of course, you might look at that and be like, "Dang, I should have just did what you told me to do, just started calling everybody." But what I really loved is instead of just being so afraid to where you were paralyzed and you did nothing, you figured out a way to just feel a little bit more comfortable to actually take action. So that's something that anybody could take away listening to this is that, hey, there are going to be things that you feel pretty afraid to do and scared of in this business. Now, of course, the goal is to just break through those fears and to be able to take action. But let's just be honest, we're all human beings. And the reality is you might be so afraid where you just don't do anything, and you don't want to do that. You want to at least figure out a way to either have someone, maybe hire a virtual assistant to do the calling for you, maybe call a certain type of list so you can at least get your feet wet and kind of get experience, but just take action, do something that will help you. Now, the second thing you said was I was calling numbers and my phone number was out of state. It was a Michigan number. So I know that there are people that legitimately, because they're always trying to have every little thing in order before they take action. I know people that'll stall and wait until they figure out how to get a phone number in the local area to call. And I love how you're just like, I'm just going to call. Like what if you have waited until you got like a Google number set up, locally, or started asking like, what's the best system to use to get a local number and all these things that, yes, does it help? If you're calling in a certain local area and your number is from that area, of course, absolutely. But you know what else helps? Just taking freaking massive action. And that's what you're doing. You're just taking action, and then look where it landed you. So that's absolutely amazing. So, guys, if you're listening right now, basically what Angelina's talking about is there was a house that was in a probate situation because the owner passed away and it was inherited to other family members. But when a person owns a property and they pass away and they're the sole owner of that property, it goes through a probate situation. Now, this one was a little bit interesting because obviously there were multiple owners, and then there was a probate that still had to happen. And I think there's some other reasons why, because they're obviously the brothers owned it as well. But either way, it was about just being patient and really building rapport, which is the last thing that I wanted to touch on, is how you said there were other investors that were interested, but because of the rapport that you built. And guys, if you're wondering what does it mean to build a rapport, I mean, it's kind of hard to like teach how to build the right rapport that gets people to feel comfortable with you. But the truth of the matter is just being likable, right? Like Angelina is really likable and really easy to talk to, and you just feel like you could trust this person. And she just didn't seem aggressive or trying to like, lowball them in a way that they just like, man, this person's just basically trying to make a dollar off of me. And that's where you can start. Be just likable and just be someone that someone can engage with and feel comfortable with, and get to know a little bit about them and what's going on in their situation and build that rapport. So amazing job. But let's just talk about, at the end of the day, a $21,000 assignment, which was absolutely insane. And we kind of brushed over your first deal, but your first deal was a creative financing deal, a subject to deal. So maybe you just touch on a few minutes about how that deal came about, and then what you did with this subject to deal and what you learned from that as well.
So creative finance was, again, I jumped into this, knowing nothing, but I bought a house. I had a tenant in it. I had to sell a house, right? So I knew nothing. So I think I asked a bazillion questions, and I feel like I annoyed 1,000 people, took 1,000 notes. But at the end of the day, creative finance, I've learned, is truly a blessing on both ends of the real estate side. For the seller, he was $23,000 in arrears, and being in the military, your command gets involved and you can get dishonorably discharged, especially with the situation he was in. And it could really hit you hard when you retire. This man had months before he was going to retire, and I had no idea. $23,000 in arrears was like, how does that even happen? But when I brought it to you and I brought it to the table, you're like, yeah, I think I know a guy. Boom. And next thing I know, somebody's buying it. But what I learned was the debt stays in the seller's name. So the seller literally gets saved by grace, really. So he's now brought current. He has this debt in his name, so his credit will get boosted, and he doesn't have a foreclosure on his record. And his command now is off of his back, especially right before he retires. This was huge for him. When I say huge, like, he keeps telling me, like, I don't understand how you guys did this. Like, this was just the biggest blessing, which made me feel good. Just because I was able to help him out. And then, of course, an investor now has another property that they can invest and also make money off of. So it was truly a win-win and such a learning experience for me. It's now like, I want to do sub 2 with everything. Like, you have a pre-foreclosure, like, let me see it.
Yes, I love it.
So it was pretty amazing.
Which is great. Yes. So guys, if you're trying to figure out what exactly are some of these things that she's talking about, so a house was in foreclosure. Basically, the owner was not able to make the payments. And particularly if you're listening right now, at the time of us recording this, we recently just got out of a global pandemic called COVID. And honestly, there was a mandate that you really couldn't basically foreclose on anyone. So a lot of the arrears that you typically would hear about in the past being much smaller are much bigger now. Like, you hear people being $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 in the arrears, and it's like, how the heck are they able to get that far behind? And it's because you couldn't get foreclosed on. So he had a pretty big upside down value on the property. So it was just going to be hard for him to try and sell it, listing it with a realtor. And then, there's some repairs that need to be done and all these different things. So he really needed someone like Angelina to come in and have a conversation with him about buying the property subject to, which we're not going to take this entire episode to talk about the details of that, but essentially it's taking over mortgage payments. So you're not assuming the loan. You are now just saying, I will be responsible for these mortgage payments, and the loan actually stays in their name, which is really, really huge because it actually allows them to now improve their credit after all these payments that they were not able to make, and it ruined their credit. And then it allows you to be able to buy a property without having to go to the bank and actually have to get qualified for financing, right? Because you'd basically have to go get a loan from the bank to go pay off this loan from another bank, and basically the banks are the only ones making money. So the cool thing about Subject 2 is it's a win-win for everyone. You can acquire a property much easier by just taking over the mortgage payments, and they basically have that debt stay in their name, but it improves their credit. And then most importantly, like Angelina said, they don't have a foreclosure on their record. And it's just a great opportunity. And for Angelina, she actually assigned that deal to the end buyer. And that's kind of what she was saying, that we brought a buyer to the table who wanted to buy it. And it was super helpful for that buyer because he just had this deal sourced for him, basically. But it was helpful for Angelina because she was able to assign the terms of buying that deal. So she basically said, hey, Mr. Investor, I have this opportunity where you could buy this property subject to. So we worked out an assignment on what she would get paid. You can call it like a referral fee, but it's still an assignment on them buying those terms of the agreement. And she was able to make money that way. So guys, a lot of different ways that you can make money in real estate, especially getting started and not having a ton of capital or a ton of knowledge. But really, really love the points that you shared about finding a community, get connected to somebody who's doing what it is that you're trying to do, who's doing deals actively, who's not just teaching and talking about it, but they're in the trenches every single day. And then just take action, follow the simple steps to be able to get to that next level. And, your life is really going to change because like what I love to say is real estate investing is not a get rich quick, but it definitely is a get rich for sure. Right? You can definitely get rich and get wealthy, build wealth through real estate. And it's just an amazing, amazing opportunity. So we'll kind of wrap it up here. Just wanted to bring you on and share your story, encourage other people. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to be encouraged by the fact that you're a stay-at-home mom, that you knew nothing really about real estate investing. You jumped into this thing and you are crushing it. I mean, you're getting close to $30,000 just within the past, 90 days, 3 to 4 months. And it's just been really, really crazy. And you've never had to leave your house. I mean, you've literally just been at home doing this with kids, and it's just been super, super awesome. So, and this is only the beginning. I mean, we're in freaking, it's like April, right? I mean, January, February, March, April. I mean, it's been literally 3-4 months. I mean, we still have the rest of the year to do all kinds of amazing things. So this year is going to be massive and amazing. So we appreciate you in the community, Angelina, seriously. And one last thing that we would love to ask you is, what is something that you can share to anyone listening right now who's either a stay-at-home mom, but also just not even a stay-at-home mom, someone who just hasn't taken that step. They're thinking about real estate. They're learning about real estate. That's why they're listening to this podcast, but they haven't just taken that full action. Maybe what's something that you can leave with them before we wrap it up?
I think my biggest question to myself, and I've actually had a few people reach out to me. I asked them, what do you have to lose? In all honesty, what do you have to lose? You have everything to gain. You don't have a lot to lose. So say it's not for you, great, but you learned something. Obviously, that's a win. You're able to find out something about real estate that's going to be in your life. Either you're going to buy a home, you're going to sell a home, you're going to live somewhere, you're going to be in an apartment, right? So you've learned something that you can actually apply to your life later. So at the end of the day, what do you have to lose? You have everything to gain. And the biggest thing, someone says, how do you do it with your kids? Block scheduling. I typically try to be done with this stuff by 4 o'clock. I still spend time with the kids. I haven't left the house. Usually you guys see me with my hair up, no makeup, looking, like wreck. But it's not a big deal because at the end of the day, I'm still with them, still being able to contribute to the family. And it was just something that I can add to their future. So really it's all about block scheduling and that mindset of you have nothing to lose. You literally have nothing to lose. It's just wild to me.
Absolutely. Amazing. Angelina, I can already tell we're probably going to have you back on the podcast, I'm sure, in a couple of months, once you do 50K, 100K, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. So we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And we're really, really excited for your future. And I am excited for you to help other students as well so that they can really feel that experience of being able to do your first deal and do some massive deals. So really, really excited. Thank you for everything that you do. And appreciate your time. We'll wrap it up. Thank you guys for listening. And that wraps up episode number 8. We'll see you on the next one. You can't stop. Can't stop, won't stop.